Hi everyone, Shane R. Monroe here. I realize this is a long video, but there's a combination of like 4 other videos along with some extra stuff, so please be patient. First thing we're going to do is go into Dolphin and we're going to make sure that you have show hidden files on. Now I do have a complete Dolphin configuration video that's probably worthwhile, but anything interesting in the file system is hidden by default, so that's why we have to turn it on. You can also use the split mode to see 2 different locations, and we're going to configure this toolbar right here to give us a delete button, because there is no delete by default inside of the Dolphin file manager. So now you have a delete button that you can actually clean things off instead of sending them to the trash bin. So we're going to go into this hidden.steam Steam apps folder, and this is where all of the Proton prefixes are at, and we're going to be spending a lot of time in here, so you probably would like to have a shortcut. We're going to right click and add to places, and now compat data is available, and it's not just available here, it's available in any file dialog box. We're going to show you why that's important later. Okay, so now we have our SD card on the right and our local storage on the left. We're going to create a new folder in both of these locations. Now you can call it whatever you want. I'm calling them games. This is what I call centralized game storage locations. This means that you'll always know what games you have installed and they're not hidden inside the prefixes. Now you can name them whatever you want, but just remember what you name them for later. Okay, now that we've done the prerequisite stuff, let's go ahead and get busy. We're going to download the PC version of the Ubisoft Connect application, and we're going to save it in downloads. Make sure your browser doesn't mangle the .exe extension, because that does happen with some browsers. Okay, now we've got the installer for the digital locker. We're going to go ahead and add that to our Steam library as a non-Steam game. We're going to hit browse, and we are going to go to downloads where that Ubisoft Connect installer actually is, and we're going to add that as a non-Steam game. See, that compat data is right there. You can get that compat data anywhere from any file browser. It's perfect. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and add that, and yeah, so now we type in UB in our search, and there it is. I have a lot of games in here, so you might have to scroll a lot to find that otherwise. Okay, now the first thing we have to do is we have to set a Proton compatibility layer. Out of the box, it's going to assume it's a Linux game, which it's not, but we have to designate Proton Experimental, and we use Proton Experimental because it's very, very friendly for third-party digital lockers. Okay. Plus, it gets updated a lot, too. That's important. All right, so we're going to go ahead and run this for the first time. Now, what we're running here is the installer. We don't always want to run the installer to play Ubisoft games, which is why there's an extended piece of this video. So we're going to go ahead and install it, but we're not going to run it. Do not run it. It's just going to add confusion and chaos to our otherwise normal lives. So go ahead and uncheck that and hit finish. Now, Ubisoft Connect is actually installed somewhere, right? It's in a Proton prefix tucked away inside the compat data folder. Now, finding that after the fact is very difficult, but since we just installed this, the Proton prefix with the most recent date and timestamp should be the one that got created, and this is it. Now, if you've done part of this now and you come back to it, that might not be the most recent one. Now, you can use a tool called Proton Tricks, available in the Discover store, that will tell you what non-Steam shortcut is pointed to what folder. In this case, we know what folder it is. Let's drill in, go into the prefix folder, and drive C. This looks a lot like Windows, right? You should be suddenly right at home if you're a Windows user. Somewhere in here is where Ubisoft's Connect launcher is actually stored. So we're going to dig in here until we find the actual exe. There it is, Ubisoft Game Launcher.exe. Right click and select copy location. This is going to copy the file name and the entire path to the clipboard. We need this because remember, we don't want to launch the installer every single time. Instead, we're going to paste in this new location into the target. This is why I say use a mouse and keyboard. Now you must use leading and trailing double quotes on this target. See? If you don't, it's not going to work. We used to have to send you to a whole nother video for this, but now it's included because Valve doesn't seem interested in fixing it. So we're going to copy that whole thing and paste it into the start in. Now start in is the folder where that target lives. So we have to remove the actual target, right? So we're going to remove the actual executable, right? We just want the folder, and the folder is Ubisoft Game Launcher, right? With all the path in front of it. Great. So now we should be in pretty good shape. See? This is the full path and it matches up with what we have here. Great. Now we can go ahead and rename this. We're not using the installer anymore. This is actually Ubisoft Connect. Plus, if you name this right, it'll be easier to scrape artwork later with the SteamGridDB plugin from DecuLoader. Okay, so now we're going to run it. Now, what should happen is not the installer. If the installer runs, you did something wrong. And I'm leaving all this lag in here on purpose. I want you to see how long it can take to launch, because you might think, oh, it didn't work. Well, it did work. It just takes a while to get there. So this is the first run of Ubisoft Connect. It's going to go ahead and update itself, and then it will restart. And again, all of this takes an amount of time, and I want you to see it, which is, again, why I left it in here. Now, Ubisoft Connect's a little weird in desktop mode. If you try to maximize it, it'll start flickering all over the place. If you leave it minimized or in a smaller window version, it will work better. But I hate these third-party lockers. I really do. I hate them. I hate that we have to use them. It makes me crazy. All right, let's go ahead and sign in, and make sure you check that Remember Me box. Unless you're worried about security or something. I don't know why else you would want to do that, but make sure you fill this guy out, and you include the Remember Me. Now, this is your Ubisoft account information, not your Steam information, okay? So this is just like we're running Ubisoft on Windows. All right, we're going to go ahead and log in. And now, if for some reason this doesn't pop to the front, you might have to right-click on that icon down there and select something to bring that interface to the front. And there's the interface. Now, you notice it's not flickering now, but if I make it bigger, it starts spazzing out, and there's really no way to fix it, right? You can't minimize it from here. Pretty much you have to stop and restart it, or restart the desktop. It's madness. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to gaming mode. We're going to go back to gaming mode, and in gaming mode, you don't get that nasty flicker. It's a little less resolution to play with, but listen, it's better than the flicker. So if we go ahead and run this in gaming mode, we're going to have the opportunity to change a couple of things. Most important is to change your install location. So right now, Ubisoft defaults to C/program files / blah, blah, blah. That is all inside that Proton prefix, well hidden away from prying eyes and any sort of thing you might want to do with it. And it also means that if you remove this locker, that it's going to destroy all of your installed games. You don't want that either. So let's go to the downloads under settings, and that's the location, and that's located inside that Proton prefix. We do not want that. We want it somewhere else. Now, other tutorials and other people on Reddit and stuff are going to say, just use the Z drive, or just use the D drive, or just use this full path to get to your micro SD card. This does not work, because all of these locations are under the purview of the Proton prefix restrictions. And I'm going to show you exactly why this doesn't work. So I'm going to go to the games folder on my micro SD card, which, by the way, it resolves to the D drive. You'll see it in just a second. So it says D/games. That should be on my micro SD card, and it is. But there's a problem with that. There's a restriction as to how big a file can be when you install it on there. It's, oh, well, I just use the Z drive then. That's what somebody on Reddit told me to do. I just use the Z drive. Okay, so you use the Z drive, and you're back in a similar situation. So you can go ahead and use now I'm going to point it instead to my games on my micro SD, or on my internal storage. Okay, so now it's D games. So it shouldn't be inside the prefix now, and that's great, but it doesn't work. And I'm going to show you why in just a minute. So we're going to go to games, and I'm going to install that new Prince of Persia demo. No, not that Prince of Persia, the other one. There you go. But I tell you what, this is not the greatest thing to play with. Okay, here we go. So we're going to go ahead and install this. Now watch what happens. Wah, wah. Now you know for a fact that your internal storage and your SD card have plenty of space. You see that limitation? Disk space 7.7 gigabytes? Yeah, that's what we're going to have to get around by using centralized storage. So inside here is our prefix, and there's our drive C, right? That's drive C according to Ubisoft Connect. So we're going to take the games folder either off our internal storage or off of our micro SD, your choice. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the games from my internal storage, left drag it, and select link here into the drive C of the Ubisoft Connect Proton prefix. So this games folder is going to magically show up when I go back to Ubisoft and select a download location. But it's really not in the prefix, it's actually being stored somewhere else inside this folder. I know this sounds confusing. It's going to be a lot easier to actually see it in operation. So let's go back to Ubisoft Connect. We're going to run it in Windows mode, but this time we're not going to maximize the window. And we should be okay as long as we don't maximize the window. And again, this takes a little while to come up. So, and again, if for some reason it doesn't show up, it might appear in the sys tray or whatever. Most of the time, it just takes a little while to come up. All right, so we're going to wait and wait and wait. It's ridiculous that we have to have these things at all. Okay, so now we're not going to maximize it. So sorry, it's in a smaller window, but I don't want that flickering going on. So now what we can do is we can go in and change our download location. Okay, so now instead of the Z folder, which we know doesn't work, we're going to change it. This time we're going to go to the C drive. Now remember, the C drive is the drive C that we saw earlier. And there, look, there's games. That games is actually being stored on our internal storage, right? Right here. That is the shortcut or symlink that actually points to an internal storage location. So we're going to select that. Oops, well, okay. That didn't work out as well as it could have. So if you resize that box to see more stuff, I left that in there because sometimes I like you guys to see when things go wrong. All right, so we got games and we should be good to go. See games. All right, yeah, we know, games aren't going to move by themselves, blah, blah, blah. Okay, perfect. Okay, now, if this is done right, which it is, because obviously you're watching this video, when I go back to install that game again, it's going to install in this symlink, which is actually over here inside my local SSD. That's what we want. So let's check it out. You saw what happened last time. Let's see what happens this time. Once again, Prince of Persia demo. Download. Oh, look at that. No warnings this time. All right. So it says C games, but don't be fooled by that. That's the internal storage on your SSD or your SD card if you chose to use that one. Now, through the magic of post-production editing, we're not going to make you sit through the entire download here. But it's important to note why we do this, why we use centralized storage. It protects your game installs. It stops a lot of nonsense. It stops that 7.7 gigabyte limitation. There's a whole bunch of reasons why we do it. And you should do it because so many people have lost 120 gigabyte downloads because they accidentally deleted their Ubisoft launcher and they took the game with them. All right, so let's go into the games folder. Look at that. There's Prince of Persia, the demo. Now, right here, there's an executable for the demo, and you're thinking, well, now that I've got the game, I don't need that launcher anymore. So I'm just going to create a new Steam game and point to that exe. Well, that would be great, but these games don't run without the digital locker behind them. So what we're going to do to get around that is we're going to do a little tomfoolery action here. So we're going to add a new non-Steam game, and we are going to choose that executable. And in the interest of teaching and not just doing, I'm going to show you that it doesn't work. So there's our demo.exe. Here's what a lot of people do. They do this. They create the standalone launcher for the game that they want, and then they go and delete the locker. Well, I've got Lost Crown now. I don't need Ubisoft Connect anymore, and they delete it. Well, guess what? It just took the game with them, and the entire locker is gone. All right, so we did have to set the Proton compatibility back to Proton Experimental. Now watch what happens when we try to run this. Wah, wah. No Ubisoft Connect. So you could inject Ubisoft Connect into that new Proton prefix, right? Which we should be able to find relatively easily by either going to compat data and sorting by modified, right? So this is the folder that was generated for Prince of Persia, but there's no digital locker in it. There's no Ubisoft Connect in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this, we're going to hit rename and grab this and copy that path to our clipboard, copy. So then we're going to delete it. There's nothing in there we need. The game itself is in one folder and the Ubisoft Connect's in another folder. So now what we're going to do is left drag and create a link. So this is a new symlink to this folder. We're going to paste in Prince of Persia's number. So essentially what we're doing is we're BSing the system, right? The system thinks that Prince of Persia is in 29277 whatever. In reality, it's going to reroute that location to where the Proton prefix is for Ubisoft Connect. So it's going to run the exe while looking for the digital locker inside the location that we installed it. Sounds complicated, but it really isn't. Once you do this once or twice, you're going, oh yeah, this is nothing. So now when we run the game itself, the executable is being run from the games folder, which is where we want it, but it's reaching into the other Proton prefix to actually legitimize the Ubisoft Connect. And boom, you can see it's working, and you can see that the game is going to work. Now, one of the things I will warn you about with peace and love, is that if you quit this game without exiting properly, it won't go back into Ubisoft Connect and maybe sync your cloud saves or other important things. So to exit that game, you want to make sure that you exit it properly, which will then force the resync down through Ubisoft Connect and that sort of thing. So that's it. I mean, so now you can set different control schemes for whatever you want. And if this is all you needed, great, you can kick off now. We're going to quickly set the artwork. Now you'll notice that this game doesn't have artwork, so they're asking you for like search for a game with like a better name. So we're going to actually put the full name in here and hope that, yep, there we go, perfect. So now it does see the game. We can go ahead and select that, and now I'm going to speed this up, and you can just watch me slam through adding artwork to both Ubisoft Connect and for Prince of Persia. Now the nice thing is, when you delete Prince of Persia, the game is still sitting in your games folder. You can go in and delete that or move it to off to an external storage or whatever you want to do. But you can see now everything looks great. You can set individual control schemes for each one of these games. You still cannot, you can't ditch the locker, right? You have to keep that around. Now you can hide that from your, you could hide it from Steam so you never have to see it. But listen, you're going to need it at some point in time, so just leave it there. There we go. I'm going to rename that so everything, my sense of order is now restored. Everything is named right. Everything looks right. And we're good to go. Listen, I know it was a little long. Thanks for sticking with it. If you like what you saw, like, subscribe, hit the bell. We're going to have other digital locker updates this year as well. So I'm Shane R. Monroe. Until next time, take care, everybody.